And you, sir, I was polite and allowed you to spew your rhetoric, which is offensive to me and others, but I'm trying to be polite and professional and answer your question. But if you want to write your own narrative and irrelevant to what I'm going to say and what the facts are, then we'll just move on to the next. I am here today with racial equity and healthcare leaders to formally declare systemic racism as a public health crisis here in Chicago. And at almost every single point in our city's history, sadly, racism has taken a devastating toll on the health and well-being of our residents of color, and particularly those who are Black.
So the declaration gives Chicago $10 million in coronavirus funds from the CDC for, quote, healthy Chicago equity zones. But what about the rise in crime there? Local media reporting since Friday night alone, at least 45 people shot and 5 of those killed. One Chicago alderman, Raymond Lopez, says this: generational gang life isn't just something that's encouraged, it's almost revered in some neighborhoods. If you really want to get to what is at the heart of a lot of this, it is gangs. And it is the borderline collapse of the family unit in many of our neighborhoods. Lightfoot has avoided calling out gangs in our community as a source of violence in our city. So, Tammy, let's start with you. Is racism a public health crisis in Chicago, as the mayor alleges?
Well, my main concern here, and remember, the liberals don't do anything that they haven't planned for, that doesn't work within the overall narrative, which is that what they're facing is something that is at the heart and soul of the nation, something they can't escape, something that others are doing to them that will never end. It allows the left to tell people of color in particular, that their suffering will never end, that you must get rid of the thing that is doing this to you. When you cast this as a health issue, you are doing that literally, personally, to every other human being. That, in fact, if racism is a health issue, it means that people who are racist have to be eliminated in order for you to be healthy.
I thought the alderman made such a good point. You know, he was saying that gangs are really at the source of the problem with Chicago, and we need to focus more on the family unit. So my question to you is, how susceptible are young men to crime without fathers at home?
Well, I think, first of all, it's a big problem. I mean, there's been a lot of fatherless homes. And I think the key here is that Lori Lightfoot wants to ignore that. Let me be as clear as I can, Lisa, on this. There is no systemic racism in Chicago. There is no systemic racism in this country. That is a Democratic lie. I want to be clear about that. Lori Lightfoot is public enemy #1 in Chicago. Now, she's not going to be able to move that $10 million. You know why? Because it's based on race. And just recently, she got nailed for excluding reporters. She's playing the race card because she's allowing people that look like me get killed every weekend in Chicago. This is a joke. This is a game she's trying to play. She's trying to win re-election, and she plays the old-fashioned Democratic race card in order to try to stay in office. There is no systemic racism. I'm sick of that. And key here is she is public enemy #1 in Chicago.
Leo, I wish you would tell us how you really feel.
I'm trying to figure it out.
I'll tell you tomorrow. I'll tell you tomorrow. I'll tell you tomorrow.
That was very powerful and so succinct as always. You know, Trace, how much of this do you think, you know, Chicago has so many issues, so many problems. How much of this is a distraction from those issues? As we've discussed, 45 people shot, 5 killed since Friday alone.
And you keep in mind, those numbers are compiled late last night, Lisa. That's kind of how it works, and they're distributed Sunday morning. And so by tonight, those numbers are going to be a lot higher. Think about it. 45 shot, 5 killed. It happens every single weekend in Chicago. You know, I love Chicago. When Fox News Channel went on the air 25 years ago, I was the Chicago correspondent. We did a ride-along with a gang unit, and we would meet these 14 and 15-year-old kids who not only were in gangs, but the Alderman Lopez is right. They were proud of being in gangs. They felt like they had a home. They had, you know, a place of belonging. They were proud of it, and they would do whatever they were told. And you talk about how you solve this. The solving this is not pointing finger at race. Is going in on the ground and sending in mentors and coaches and teachers and people to keep these kids from the hours of 2 o'clock in the afternoon until 6 o'clock in the afternoon when mom comes home. Something has has to be productive in those hours. That's the way that you keep these kids out of gangs. It has worked in places like Baltimore, other cities around the country, including Los Angeles, and nobody is doing it. There's no Black Lives Matter marches in Southside Chicago every weekend. Why?
Right.
Why aren't they marching? Why isn't the uproar? Why isn't there this immense outrage across the country about what's happening in some of these cities like West Baltimore and South Chicago, Southeast Los Angeles? It's just not happening because it's not making cable news. Marches in the inner cities are not going to make cable news. If it doesn't make cable news, they don't care about it.
Such a good point. And I think Leo had referenced the mayor also denied white reporters interviews. So it begs the question, why is she allowed to get away with racism for there? So
is the reason why the hotels are empty, the reason why the storefronts are closed, is because of fear of violent crime. There was, well,
Sir,
if I may ask my question, it's
you
a
ask
simple
your
question.
question, I will respond.
There's a woman, a pregnant woman was shot at a hotel across the street from here last week at 4 in the afternoon. You know, of course, we have this horrific Juneteenth, 50-some shootings. A young Hispanic couple pulled from their car and shot execution style. This video has gone viral. I don't think we've had any arrests in this case yet. A tourist came to Chicago and was stabbed in the back and murdered on Juneteenth here in the city of Chicago. Our police chief referred to the location of the stabbing as a homeless camp. Last time, I was born and raised in Chicago. I always considered it to be the financial district of Chicago, not a homeless camp.
Do you have a question, sir?
Yeah, so my question is, do you feel personally responsible for the your rhetoric, your heated rhetoric is responsible for this off-the-charts violent crime in the city of Chicago?
So,
Several questions.
Oh, no, I have a follow-up. No, I only asked one question.
okay, so,
White reporter in the house.
so you know what? That's not appropriate, sir. If you look
Turn my
around you,
mic off.
if you look around you, sir, you're surrounded
Okay.
by white reporters. So I really ask you
Okay.
to
Do you
hold
feel
on, sir.
responsible?
Let me answer the question that you've already asked. So I don't know where you're from. I know what magazine you're from, and I know what your conservative viewpoints are. But on almost every question that you ask, you had the facts wrong. So here's what I will say in answer to about the 15 questions that you just asked. No one thinks that a single act of violence is ever acceptable, least of all me. The hotels are where they are here in Chicago, as they are across the country because of economic shutdown related to COVID-19. So that the premise of your very first question is fundamentally flawed and wrong. And you can have your opinion on it, but I got the facts. So the premise of your question, which is it's chaos everywhere, and the fact of the matter is, sir, which you also didn't point out, but I will, so we get this straight, is that we're actually seeing a decline in homicides and shootings. Yes, sir.
Sir, we are
No,
done.
sir.
Heather,
Okay.
Here's my question. Here's my follow-up
we're
question.
done.
No. Let him ask his follow-up question so he doesn't claim that somehow we're being biased and slighting the guy from Newsmax. Please, sir, it's 6:30 going on 7. Ask your follow-up question.
Well, my follow-up question is simply this. Many residents in Chicago feel that you've lost control of the city. Now it appears as though you've lost control of the Chicago City Council. Do you owe an apology to the victims of violent crime, the thousands of unsolved shootings and murders and stabbings and random stabbings in the downtown and the south side and the north side and the west side? Do you owe these people any apology?
So once again, sir, I ask you to get your facts right. Crime is not out of control in our city. In fact, crime is on the decline.